Hey, welcome. They changed so much around on here. I got confused. Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Jeff Experience. Welcome to the first show of 2025. Welcome. Happy New Year to everybody. To those of you, I pray that you had a great New Year. Whether it was peaceful, at home, celebrating, or you came in bringing the New Year's in outside someplace else, or if you were in New York, if you were at the Peace Drop, wherever it was, I'm so glad to see that you made it safe into another year. Um, so many celebrations right before that. My wife and I, happy anniversary to us. We celebrated the end of year 33 and the beginning of year 34. Can you believe that? Who would put up with me that many years? Happy birthday to my cousin Stacy today. I had no idea how old she is because she doesn't age. She just celebrates a new year every year. So I think she turned 40 again. Um, Happy birthday. I had two granddaughters who've had birthdays in December. So happy birthday to them. Happy birthday to you. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Let me know if you celebrated a birthday or how you celebrated New Year's Eve. If you're on YouTube, like and share or subscribe to us so that you can get notifications when things come through. If you're on LinkedIn, do the same thing. Share it with somebody. If you're on Facebook, share it, like it, all that kind of stuff. And this is interactional. So let me know how you brought in New Year's and what you're going to do this new year, 2025. You know, everybody's got New Year's resolutions. I don't do that. I just try to do better this year what we did last year. So, to God be the glory. So glad to have all of you here. Those who will be watching this later on. I want to give you a peek into my dog Sakari turned 4 years old on the 28th. Yeah, Sakari. Um, but I want to give you a peek into my world of community partnerships. So, comprehensive community partnerships. That was my dissertation in college, and my my doctoral thesis, and comprehensive community partnerships, which include law enforcement, faith institutions, and community organizations, and the community coming together for comprehensive community reform. Now, many of you probably have been part of some sort of community partnership. This can be very complicated if it's not done correctly. It really requires my suggestion has always to bring somebody in from the outside who can put everyone together and maximize the potential of all of those who are together. You know what? Let me do something about my audio here. I got some professional audio, and I want you guys to hear it a little better. Is that all right? So let's deal with this. But in the meantime, go ahead and invite some people in. Let some people know that we are here. We are here, and we want folks to come on in. There we go. I'm on my Yeti professional microphone. Yeah. There we go. So, as I was saying, comprehensive community forum, community partnerships involving law enforcement, the faith community, and community groups and community itself can be complicated because, number one, I take it from a biblical aspect, and my research has led me to have a basis from Nehemiah. And one of the books that I read by Esau Macaulay entitled Reading While Black, great book, go out and get it. He breaks down the importance of, if we're going to do community partnership work, it has to be faith based. Oh, my sister Kiva celebrated her birthday on the 27th. Yeah, happy birthday, Kiva. It has to be faith-based. You've got to make sure that everybody on board in this partnership understands their role. And we're going to go through that. We're going to go over that tonight. And we've got to understand that we must participate in government. A lot of people think that, community partnerships and community reform, we don't need government, but we do, because government makes legislation, and everything that we do in a community partnership leads to better legislation for those folks in the community that we're trying to help. We're trying to serve, whether it be juvenile jobs, whether it be child care advocacy, whether it be higher wages for workers, whether it be more police officers, more hospitals, whatever. We want to get it to the legislators so that we can have policy and legislation in order to have a better community. So let me read you a little background of what I got from Esau McCaulley, and then I'm going to deal with the biblical basis of it, and then we'll go into the details real quick. Is that all right? All right. So Esau McCaulley, in his book entitled Reading While Black, he deals with this theodicy statement of he asked the question that why must a good God, sovereign over all, why would God allow evil rulers to come to power? And the question, in fact, or in another form, is not about our submission to wicked rulers, but the very existence of wicked rulers. The bigger question or criticism to Paul in what he was talking about in the Bible is, what are we to do when the people assigned to govern us, that power to govern us, takes that power to harm us? And why is there harm at all? So there's these questions that we have to think about when we're going into this community partnership thing and dealing with community. In Macaulay's book, Macaulay seems to be pointing out that the same government that created and established the structures must do what is necessary to make the wrongs of these structures corrected and the injustices undone. In other words, Macaulay points out, and it's important for us to know that as we go forward with real community partnerships for community reform, we have to understand and point out that the same government that created and established the structures must do what is necessary to make the wrongs of these structures corrected and the injustices undone. That's what we got to work on. Now, as a group of people, especially Christians, we must remember, but of all faiths, we must remember that the power is with the people in a democratic republic. And that's what we live in, a democratic republic. And hopefully we stay that. And because of this, we must do what we can to hold elected officials responsible for the collective actions of the agents of the state who act on our behalf. That's why I always preach and teach the importance of the election is only one part of the process. Once we do our due diligence to support those who are elected or to get them elected, we have to then make sure, Brother Lil John, good to see you, man. We've got to make sure we do what we can to hold these elected officials responsible for the collective actions of the agents of the state. It means that we work with them. We establish these different organizations, especially community partnerships, to say to them, hey, let us be your eyes and ears out in the community. And as we try to organize you can help us with legislation once we bring it to you about what's needed. So we must vote. That's number one. We must vote if we're dealing with community partnerships, if we're dealing with comprehensive community reform. We have to vote. We must be civically active, and that's without our anarchy. We can you see how peaceful this January 6th was? I mean, we can be civically active without anarchy. Those in government must be reminded that the state only operates as stewards or caretakers of the people that they serve. And this must be the mindset if we're going to get involved, because we have to be involved with government. Right. We have to start believing in politics instead of elections. That's correct. I want to get back to that statement. Macaulay states in his book that the government did not create them, and it does not own or define them. God is our creator, and God will have a word for those who attempt to mar the image of God in any person. We are the people. We are the people called as to be when we are called, and we have to remind the state of the limits of its power. Now, some people will say, "Well, that's difficult." No, it's not. No, it's not. It's really not difficult at all. So again, we're talking about community partnerships, and how I do it is based on a faith foundation. Okay, and again, Esau Macaulay talks about this based on his account of his negative police encounter, that turned into a positive, actually. And Macaulay points out that in Romans 13 is what he bases a lot of his findings on. And he points out that Paul's focus seems to be on the individuals more than the state. And Macaulay stresses that Paul states individuals should submit to those in authority because they have been placed there by God. And Macaulay begins to highlight the cause of concern for many because of Paul's lack of qualification of this statement. Those who resist these authorities ran the risk of opposing God's will. Well, Macaulay talks about what he calls the case in which the proper Christian response to mistreatment is not revolution, but obedience under suffering in the hopes of an eschatological righting of wrongs. And I know this sounds a little deep, and I'm going to break this down more, but I sometimes argue against that adage that everything will be all right in the great by and by. I don't go for that. We should just suffer the atrocities in hopes that everything will be all right when we get to heaven. I don't subscribe to that. Okay. I don't subscribe that everything's going to be in the great by and by, and we should just suffer these atrocities against us in all hopes that everything's going to be all right when we get to heaven. No. And Macaulay even mentions that the coming kingdom remains a central pillar of theology that not only gives us hope for the future, but also negates the power of those who can kill the body, but no more, but do no more. Macaulay believes that Paul has more in mind than what he calls some flattened sub-biblical form of meekness. Yeah, I don't go for any of that. Macaulay deals with this theodicy statement that says we must ask why a good God, sovereign over all, would allow evil rulers to come to power. And again, as I said, the question, in fact, is not about our submission to wicked rulers, but the very existence of evil. So let me go a little further in this, because Macaulay really deals with this issue in detail. Macaulay seems to be pointing out that the same government that created and established the structures must do what is necessary to make the wrongs of these structures corrected and the injustices undone. And that's what I said earlier. Okay. And I must go back to emphasizing the importance of faith-based institutions community, and law enforcement coming together to help one another establish better communities, along with better structures that hold appointed and elected officials accountable for the instructions and policies of those under them. I'm not going to sit around and wait for the great by and by. We free. We free. We must never forget that God's role in everything, God has a role in everything, especially government. We must remember that the same way God used bad people to cause good things to happen and motivate people to move forward, God will do this. Bad government actions will never go unnoticed by God. Our job is to trust God, even in the suffering, to know that God is able. And don't give up. Don't give up. Okay? Don't give up. Don't give up. Never give up. So if we want to deal with community partnerships, again, I did it from a biblical way, a biblical platform, a biblical foundation. And I utilize Nehemiah. Excuse me. Oh, man, allergic to something. I utilize Nehemiah rebuilding the walls as the genesis of how I deal with community reform. What Nehemiah did was a perfect example for me on how to do strategic and comprehensive community reform utilizing community partnerships. What Nehemiah did was, when he heard about the condition of the walls that have come down, what Nehemiah did was, the first thing he did was he sits. It's a process. He sat, he mourned, he prayed, and then he took rest. He took rest before he assessed. If we're going to be involved in community reform, we must have a burning desire to do this. Being involved in community reform is not just a place to say, I need something like this on my resume. This is real work. This is work from the bottom up. Okay. And you have to utilize your faith in order to maintain a level of cooperation when it comes to dealing with community partnerships. So what Nehemiah did, and what got me about this passage dealing with Nehemiah and rebuilding of the walls, was his process in the very beginning. The first thing he did was he sat, he mourned, he prayed, but then he took rest before he assessed. All throughout the Bible, you'll often find Jesus during a hard period of time. Jesus went to a solitary place to pray. He went off into a solitary place to pray so that he could commune with the Father. Nehemiah, what he did was he involved others in the assessment process. When we're dealing with community partnerships, you got to know that you can't be the smartest one in the room when you're dealing with these partnerships. You've got to, your role is to get people together after you have assessed the situation. Because in community partnerships, what I have found is if you don't take time to assess the situation and you just come in thinking that, okay, I know what to do. I'm going to get this group together, I'm going to get this group together, and get this group together, and we're going to solve the problem. But you really haven't heard the hearts of the people. I was recently at a city town hall on behalf of someone who asked me to come in and assess the situation. And it hurt me to my heart to hear some of the things that were going on. And I felt just like Nehemiah. Matter of fact, as I'm thinking about it, I see the comparisons. I sat and I mourned. I mourned for the people. I mourned for the things that were going on and what were being expressed. And I prayed, God, give me what it is that I need to do or what little bit I can do to contribute to helping this matter. And then I did some research and started assessing the whole situation. And through that assessment, I was able to think of, okay, this group is good for that. That group is good for this. This group is good for that. And I knew exactly who I needed to communicate with for us to come together. And I'm in the process of doing that now for this particular community. And, but had I not stopped and prayed and mourned and asked God to help me with that, I think through that process, I was able to have empathy, more to be more empathetic in the situation. In other words, for me, empathy means being so close to a situation that I can get wet from the tears of others. Wow. Wow. I don't know where that even came from. But that's empathy for me. Being so close to the situation that I can hear the heartbeat of others. I can feel the moisture of the tears as they weep. That's what empathy means to me. So through that process, I'm putting together a coalition, a group now that we can do some community reform. But again, Nehemiah also showed us something, that we can't let opposition distract us or others from doing the job. So in your formulating partnerships, you've got to make sure that you have the right people in the right places so that when those distractions come, they won't allow those distractions to get them away from doing the job. Now, that's where I believe the basis should be. It should be through a faith base situation. Faith should be your foundation when you get involved in community partnerships. So, law enforcement, faith institutions, and community. How do you put them together? Why those three? What do they have to offer, and how do they all get together? I'm glad you asked that question. And if you got some questions, comments, statements, go ahead, put it in the chat. I can see what you're writing. And if I need to address it, I will. If you got a question or a statement. Let's start with law enforcement. So, law enforcement, the motto of law enforcement, believe it or not, is still protect and serve. Protect and serve. Protect and serve. Remember, I talked about in Macaulay's book how he said that we need to make sure that those structures must do what is necessary to make the wrongs of these structures corrected and the injustices undone. Well, it's the same way for law enforcement. We think that law enforcement just goes and arrests people. But no, law enforcement is part of the community. It's to make the community better. In many jurisdictions, many municipalities, we have what's known as community policing. Now, I was part of law enforcement when community policing came about. They named it something that we were already doing. For instance, when I came on force, I walked the beat. So we got to know the businesses on our beat. We got to know the neighbors in our community because that's what we did. We didn't get a car right away. We walked the beat. We walked the beat. We walked from one block to the end of wherever that beat was. And you got to know who was in that neighborhood. You got to know who worked where, who worked at all. You got to know the children of that neighborhood. You got to know the good, bad, and the ugly of that neighborhood because you were there 8 hours a day. 5 days a week. So, and then if you're from that community, more than likely you grew up with a lot of people who were in that neighborhood. So that was a form of community policing before community policing had a name. Okay. But now they came up with this structured format for community policing. And a lot of that had to do with you rode your bike for a moment. You rode your bike, or you got it. You patrolled in your car, and then at a certain point in time, you had to get out the car and walk the neighborhood, and you were told that you needed to know this, you needed to know that about the neighborhood, and that was good, but it was mandated, and sometimes you do have to mandate stuff, but I think it could have gone a lot further, and some of them do, and that's some of the things that I put together to show that police departments can do a lot more, but if they get more involved in the community. For instance, law enforcement should know about the resources that are in a neighborhood. For instance, you go to a call where there's a situation between mother, son, mother, daughter, father, son, father, daughter, and you get to the house and you see there's an argument, but the place it's 20 degrees cold outside and it's about 15 degrees cold inside, and you see that you can feel there's no heat. You can see that there's just some problems, and then the child may be a little disheveled. You might want to ask some questions like, hey, it's kind of cold in here. Do you have heat? You may find out that their heat has been turned off. Their electric has been turned off. Their gas has been turned off. And you need to know about the resources that are available to them that you can say, hey, listen, I've got a hotline number here that we can call. Matter of fact, I'm going to stay here with you right now. And we're going to make this phone call. We're going to find out what help we can get you. Because a lot of that tension may be from the fact that everybody in the house is cold and they're miserable. They got no heat. They got no electric. And that's a horrible thing, but it happens. So law enforcement gets dispatched to the call as an emergency, but really it's a situation where they just need some help. So when the law enforcement officer has those resources available to them, they can make those calls. And not just make the calls, but what I used to tell people was, and tell some of my buddies on the force, don't just make the call, but before you even get to the call, I was at a church in Tampa, and what I did was I made sure that we had a resource book, not only of places that could offer help, but we made a phone call to those people who were in charge of it, so that when that need came up, we could call directly that person who we established a tie with and say, hey, this is the situation. We need some help. So we had a partnership there. And that's how community partnerships work. So law enforcement also, many of you may not know, but they, in order for them to continue to be accredited through an organization called CALEA, CALEA, they have to have documented hours of community partnership, community input. What have you done to be part of the community? So the community partnership is one of those things that they can utilize to keep their accreditation. And without accreditation, they can't get federal funds. They can't get federal grants for uniforms, equipment, all that kind of stuff. So it's a win-win for everybody. Not only that, when you have law enforcement, and I tell you, my former law enforcement organization in Atlantic City, New Jersey, under Chief Sarkos, and really started under Chief Jubilee, and then, well, really, I can go back to Chief Polk, Chief Jubilee, my good friend Chief Henry White, and now Chief Sarkos. Um, man, they they on the cutting edge of community partnerships. I mean, they do great stuff. They always doing stuff. Prayer walks, community walks, coffee with cops, donuts. Like they did a community garden together with Faith Institution and law enforcement and community. I mean, they're on the cutting edge. I'm so proud of them. But so law enforcement is a big part of a community partnership. And I'm going to deal with the three entities, but I'm going to also tell you the good and the bad and the ugly about that. And what you have to do to make sure that everyone is working together so there's no clog in the wheel, okay? That the wheel is moving effectively. So also with law enforcement, what happens is when they are involved with community, when they're involved with faith community and community, the people get to see them as human instead of just a person who comes to lock up my mommy, my daddy, my uncle, my cousin, my brother, my sister. They get to see them as human. They get to see them and touch them and see that they're human, you know? They see them helping out in the community. They see them as coaches at the football field, at the baseball field, at the soccer games, at the hockey games, basketball games, whatever it may be. They see the females and the males together outside of the uniform or in uniform, still volunteering. So good to see that. Then you've got the faith community. Now, the faith community has several services that, if done correctly, and this is how someone from the outside can come in and help develop some things that really these entities don't even realize that they have under their roof or as part of their organization. For instance, with the faith community, you've got Christian counselors or you got faith counselors. You've got grief counselors. You got social justice people. A lot of churches have social justice ministries. You got men's ministry. You got women's ministry. And, you know, the faith community is a place for people to go to get better. It's a place to go to get better. So if the faith community is working with law enforcement, then law enforcement has another resource for the faith community that they can say, hey, you know, I know a great men's group over here at Masjid Allah or Temple Beth Shalom or XYZ Baptist Church or First John Catholic Church or Episcopal Church or whatever it may be. Here's a place who has a great women's center at this particular church. Here's a place that deals with homelessness. Here's a place that deals with food resources. Now, let me say something about that, because that's been my wheelhouse also. A lot of people, when we do these community partnerships and when we get faith institutions involved, they want to offer help with their food pantries. And one of the things that you got to make sure when you have these community partnerships and you have a food pantry involved, no matter where it comes from, law enforcement, faith, or community groups, you make sure that the food that you're giving out is nutritious. I've seen situations where, you know, there's always canned good drives. They got these big canned good drives, and that's needed. But you got to know the needs of the people, and you have to have an assortment of things when you're dealing with community partnerships. For instance, if you look at a lot of these things in these cans, a lot of people will just clean out their closets. And again, that's good. But sometimes the intention is good, but overall it's not. Because you got to have somebody who can go through labels, And make sure they're not expired, because Lord knows if you give out some expired stuff and then somebody gets sick, you're going to get sued. So when you're dealing with community partnerships, this is where you can utilize everybody's expertise. Everybody can do something. Everybody doesn't have to do everything. Everybody can do one thing. So you get somebody who can go through the labels, make sure that they're good, but also sort it out so that when you have people who are diabetic, people on high blood pressure, people who have certain things going on with them physically, you don't want to give somebody canned goods that are packed with sugar, packed with salt. So make sure that you're getting, or you're asking, you're requesting people to donate things that are low in sodium, low in sugar. I'm part of a faith institution that has a partnership with local farmers. And this way we know we're getting products without any pesticides and all that kind of stuff. And it's all organic, even though the farmers may not be able to pay for the organic stamp from the FDA. We know that it's organic because it's a small farm. They're not using any pesticides or bad ingredients to boost their productivity, but it's all natural. So that's part of this community partnership. Again, that's why I say just coming along and saying, hey, we're going to get together, we're going to do a meeting, we want you to be involved, we want you to be involved, we want you to be involved, it's going to fall apart. Everybody has to know what their role is. So now, if law enforcement comes against or comes up on a call, and again, they see something that doesn't look too cool, you got a family with a large amount of people in it, and you can just tell things are off, and you ask those questions. Are you guys okay? Are you eating well? Is everything all right? Based upon your senses, and your care, and you being empathetic towards who you serve. You now have a partnership with a faith institution that has a food pantry. Or law enforcement comes up against a call, they come up against a grieving family. There's a fight and two people are having a heated argument. It's not really a fight, it's a heated argument. They come to the house and they find out that there's been a death, and folks are just grieving and they don't know how to deal with the grief. They lost somebody tragically. You come to a scene, there's been a shooting, there's been a stabbing, and somebody is still there, and the family gets there before the ambulance gets there, or law enforcement. Law enforcement comes up on the scene, they see all the ruckus going on. Well, right then and there, you can say, hey, you know what, let me call Reverend so-and-so, or Minister so-and-so, or Deacon so-and-so, or Deaconess so-and-so. Hey, I got a problem. If you're not busy, and it should be established that who can respond to things like that, because there's some training that goes along with that also. But you can call on those. That's a resource for you, again, because again, you're trying to have a better community. So now you call somebody from the faith community, Imam so-and-so, Rabbi so-and-so, Sister so-and-so from the women's group, Brother so-and-so from the men's group. Now you call them and you get them involved, and now you calm the situation. Those involved see that you cared for them. You called someone to care for them. It's just a win-win situation. So now later on, when they see you, they know you as not the guy that came to arrest us, but the guy that came to help us, or the gal that came to help us, the person that came to help us. You got me? Community partnerships, trying to make wrongs right. And through all of that, as you go about with those partnerships, and so far I've only talked about the faith community and law enforcement. We'll deal with community and business in a moment. You are now able to come to town hall meetings or community meetings in certain areas, and you can hear, and people can trust you because they built a trust with you based on how you reacted in crisis situation and these crisis situations, and they saw you and they know, oh, this is a good person. They care. And now you get to take that to your superiors, and your superiors now can have dialogue with legislators, mayors, county commissioners, state senators, state representatives, and they can now work on legislation through a partnership to help the community with those needs. Because you know what the needs are. You know it all, meeting needs, solving problems. That's the key community partnerships. Now, community groups. Community groups have access to a lot of information. A lot of your community groups know about grants. Your law enforcement people know about grants. Your faith institution know about grants. So all of those people working together, oftentimes what you will find, if when you get law enforcement, faith institutions, community groups, and businesses together, a lot of people are trying to do the same thing and they're not successful in it. And when you get small community groups, when you get small faith institutions trying to do the same thing the same way, a lot of times what they do is they exhaust their budgets too early, or they exhaust their budgets so much that they don't have the resource or the finances to do too much, and they don't have it to do it effectively because you're in competition with this one, and you shouldn't be in competition with this one. If you run a good food pantry and this one has a good clothing pantry, both of you should get together and say, hey, let's combine our resources and we'll do this together. And when we get a grant, we'll get a grant together so that we can build it a lot stronger, and we can meet the needs of the community of a whole, not just over in this block, not just over in this section. And now law enforcement has a bigger resource to pull from because they know that this church does this masjid does this synagogue does that, this Catholic church does that. It all works together. It all works together. So these community groups, again, they have assets, they have resources, and when they are working together with law enforcement and faith institutions, a lot of faith institutions have buildings, and they have recreation centers, they have gymnasiums, and through my research, I have found that the greatest times for juvenile incarceration is between 3 to 7 o'clock throughout the week, and from 7 to 9 on the weekends. Why? And this is crazy because I know many of you are going to say, well, they should be home. They're not. They need something to do. Now, going back to faith institutions, a lot of your faith institutions have what? Retired teachers, retired educators. They have mental health people. They have a plethora of informative people who can help with young people, and from the 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock hour. And when law enforcement and the community groups are working together with the faith institution, you put together a grant and they can pay some of those retired teachers, some of those retired professionals a little stipend. You can make sure that they have food available. My church back in Jersey, we used to, on Wednesday nights, our Bible study, we had food, just after school, come to the church. We had food, we had dinner. We had teachers that got off from teaching and then came over and helped out with homework. So the parents didn't have to worry about if their students were going to do their homework. And after we ate, we went up to the sanctuary and we had Bible study. We got home. Everything was good. It was just time to go to bed after that. They had been fed. They had their homework done. And this can happen all throughout the community if we're working together in an organized format. And if your leadership wants to do it, because it's got to be leadership driven. Now, the other part of that is when I talk about leadership driven, and what I teach about this is, and what I try to suggest in this is that you bring somebody in who has a love for this from the outside so that they can get everyone together to help each other know how they can help in this partnership. Because what you don't want to do is have one entity say, okay, we're going to be the lead group, and it's going to be what we say. Law enforcement can't come in and say, okay, we're going to lead this partnership, and we're going to drive what is done, when it's done, and how it's done. Can't do that. You can't get a community group to come in and say, okay, well, we've been doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the lead on this, and we're going to tell you what we need, when we need it, how we need it, and who's going to do what. Can't do that. The church can't come in and say, or faith institution. And I say faith institution because you just can't pigeonhole it into the church. Faith institutions are all across. And that's another thing. If you don't include all faiths, what good are you dealing with community? Because all faiths are part of the community, right? So, so my suggestion is you bring somebody in from the outside when you're trying to formulate a community partnership so that this person can put everyone together, see the strengths and the successes of what others have done and are doing, and then they can help with budgets. They can help create grants. They can help people share in grants. They can help people put in reports to send to your local legislators, your state, your legislators, your federal representatives. Here we've got Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. Let them know what's going on. Let them know what the needs of the community is. That's why they're there. That's why they're there. So you can't argue with somebody and say, well, they're not doing anything if you're not suggesting to them how they can help, if you're not asking to meet with them to show what it is we're doing. Listen, we've got a community partnership, and this is what we're doing. Last but not least, when you're putting together a community partnership, make sure you understand what the need is that you're trying to meet. One community partnership can't do everything. Think about what it is that you're trying to do and do that well before you move on to the next thing. Okay. Include businesses. How can businesses be a part of it? Real simple. When you've got a local business who is involved in a community partnership, that shows that they care for the community that they serve and people shop at. My wife and I, we had a UPS store, and my whole thing was, hey, somebody needs t-shirts. This group needs this. This group needs that. So we're part of the community. So yeah, let's help out. You have businesses that can, back in the day, we always had. They brought the businesses brought the baseball uniforms. They supplied stuff for football teams, other sports things, or whatever, trophies for oratorical contests, all kinds of things. Business can be involved, even to the point where myself and 1, 2, 3 other businesses, we got together because there was a group of kids that were doing some vandalism and some other stuff at one of the stores around that area and the parking lots and all that. We said, hey, let's bring some of these guys in and let's teach them about business. Let's employ them. Let's pay them under the table because a lot of them are underage. I can say it now. But let's give them a place to hang out because that's all they needed. And let's show them how to be a part of the business. Now, the one business, I know that some of those guys, they worked there for a long time. When they turned 18, they continued to work there. But that's what we did. Hey, man, this is our community. And some of the people that they were robbing and breaking into their cars, we knew them. So we said, hey, let's stop this and let's bring them in and let's help them out and let's show them how to be a part of business. Let's show them how to work. Let's show them, who knows, they might want a franchise or something later on. So that's community. That's community partnership. But again, you've got to meet a need and try to solve a problem. You got to know what that problem is. So if you're in, let's say, a fraternity and you want to be part of a community, then what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to your sorority? What are you bringing to the table? And it can be a one-off. You know, this time what we're doing is we're trying to help the community. We're going to get together and we're going to do this. We're going to do this well, and we're going to do it annually, or we're going to do it quarterly. This is what we're going to do. Our mainstay with this community group is going to be health initiatives, or it's going to be scholarship drives, or it's going to be SAT prep. I mean, if they're still doing SATs, or we're going to do college tours, whatever it's going to be. Just be about what you're trying to do. Meet that need and solve that problem. For me, as I stated before, I believe that if you do it with a faith foundation, you're going to have much more success in it. You're going to have much more fun in it. And it's not going to be just for fluff. Okay. So that's my stick on community partnerships. That's my wheelhouse. I hope you got something from it. But in case you need more, we're always available. Email me. Here's my email here. We'll hear you out. We'll think about what it is that you're trying to do, and we'll try to assist you. Not try to assist you. We will assist you. Put together a community partnership, and it'll work. And we'll show you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And, here's my website. Kind of long, but you can get it. jfauntleroyassociates.com. Go to my website. It spells out a little bit more of what we do. And super excited about something. I want to give you this website. It's on YouTube. It's kind of long. I hope you can go back and copy and paste this. But this is my son Joel's YouTube page. He is an explorer. He's an outdoorsman. And he just did a camping trip to Death Valley out in California. And it is beautiful. I mean, oh, man. It's beautiful. I mean, God created a world that it needs to be explored because there's so much more than where we live and what we do out there. So check that out. That's his YouTube page. Check it out. It's a great thing. Again, here's my email, drjfont@gmail.com. Here's my website. You can go back and get this, review it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Check it out. Give me a call. Hit me up. Email me. You want to know more about what we talked about tonight with community partnerships? Hit me up. It's what we do. Okay? Listen, I've held you enough. Thank you again. Our first show of 2025. I pray that you have a successful 2025. There's a book also I want you to get. Boy, this book's going to blow your mind. This book is going to blow your mind. This book's going to blow your mind. It's a book Matter of fact, Oprah just came out with this again for the second time. It's called A New Earth. It's called A New Earth. Let me put this up. A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle. It's a great book. It's a great read. It's not a difficult read. But you you'll be shocked by some of the things in it. I was looking at some of the excerpts today, and it blew me away. It really blew me away. Here's some of the things it talks about. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at this moment. Here's something that really got me. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it, your thoughts about that situation. Here's another one. Non-reaction to the ego in others is one of the most effective ways, not only of going beyond ego in yourself, but also of dissolving the collective human ego. And here's the one that got me. Whenever you feel superior or inferior to anyone, that's the ego in you. Get that book. Pray for me. I'm putting together a new book, and it's all about the revelation that I've been having lately about what I thought was normal. What I thought was normal. My son and I had a conversation about what's normal and what we thought was normal and what's abnormal now. Those things that we thought was normal, it wasn't normal. It really wasn't that normal. It was just what. So it was a familiar, abnormal situation. But anyway, get that book, New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It's a great read. And have a great 2025. It's starting off with a boom. I don't even know if I should have said that, because our hearts and prayers go out to those in New Orleans. And from what I understand, based on the new reporting, that could have been a lot worse. A lot worse. Nothing worse than 14 people losing their lives and others being injured. But just imagine if those bombs would have gone off. Thank God he was not successful with being able to detonate those bombs, because it would have been a lot worse. And then we had the situation out there in Las Vegas. And then we had this shooting and mass shootings. It was just 2 days of just confusion. And then who knows what's going to take place in politics. But then we lost a great humanitarian, President Jimmy Carter, 100 years old. Man, what an example. What an example of civility, of character, of more work or as much work when he left the White House as he did within the White House. So he never stopped. He was a man of faith. He was a human. He loved people. He loved God. And it was proven in his works. He was a fruitful tree. He was a fruitful tree. So God rest his soul. And we thank God for his family for keeping that legend along with the Carter Center and all of that. Again, thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Remember what I always say: meet needs, solve problems. God bless. Stay blessed. Peace.